We are deep in Radical Edge is our content to get us thinking differently and acting differently. And here we are having a little get together, a little dinner at Agnes's, starting with scene 31 and getting through scene 35. And as always the case, Coach could bloviate for the entire 30 minutes. And it's your guys' room. And I always love building off of your thoughts, your takeaways. So which one of you wants to get it going this morning? Miss Shara, your mic is hot. I'm starting with you. What do you got?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, let's see. I can bloviate a lot too. Did you say 31 to 35?
31 to 35 are the scenes where we have arrived at.
No, I don't think that's right.
It's 21. It's 21 to 25 or 6.
We've taken
What?
a few jumps. Yeah, we've taken a few jumps.
26 to 31.
Did I jump? I am
20
so far
20
ahead.
26
I will
to
take your guys'
26 to
word for it.
30. 26 to 30 it
26 to
is.
30. Let's go there then. See,
Okay.
that's why I asked for your guys' ideas. At least
Just
you know I'm
confirming.
ahead. All right.
Yeah, I got ahead too. But
26 to 30. What do you guys have?
I loved. Let me see. I've got to get to. I finally caught up on my book, but I love the part about where Steve is put on the chopping block, if you will, where he gets to articulate his message, and his word was freedom. And it really took me to so many times in my life over I've evolved or reinvented, trying to come up with something that's important to me. I love that Mary Ellen is a servant, and she's so clear about her role. And I have a feeling as we get back to, as we read more, we might see a shift in Steve, but it's so real and it's so personal that, if we really truly do a deep dive, we're going to find that no matter where we've arrived or where we are in the ebb and flow of our business, we could always use this lesson. So that just really was very pronounced for me. And I love that he, drove home in silence after, this whole blow up with Cam and so forth. So that just really stood out to me. So I didn't mean to have my mic on, but that really.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you didn't go into that.
for
What's
me.
fun is I had the right content, just the wrong numbers, which is adorable for me. That being said, is finding your one, Cheryl, like you talked about. And I loved when he was, having this conversation, and Agnes helped to find that, because you're coming up to your one concept, your one idea, the one thing, the one value, if that's what you want to use as a label. Yet it's not, as she says, finding the frequency by ruling out everything else. On the contrary, it's about finding the frequency that includes all of those important values. And of course, Steve always being, curious and going through the thought process later on, a couple pages later. And if it's not the right one, then start over, she says, and keep going until you find the one that is. What's interesting for me, Cher, is this one on freedom. I mean, not all of you, but most of you have heard, and I was going again through it earlier today, that my personal mission statement is to have every single agent who enters my life be financially, time, and location free within 5 years of showing up. It's my mission statement, and it really is freedom. The fun part is that freedom piece. Has that been part of me, and I happen to read this content, 8, 9, 10 years ago? Or is it my own? You never know when these little drops are going to kick in. It's going to be so much fun to see you guys 5 years from now having this conversation and seeing where you've gone with it. I saw Jeanette is up next. What do you got?
Sorry, I didn't. Okay. I am coming to that word for myself with it, because it is, I see it, and a lot of what I do, and so the word isn't there, what I do is I pull people out and help them to get on their feet again. So that has always been something, helping the underdog or whatever that is, although it's, it's not necessarily every underdog. It's like realizing who's ready. But what I also appreciated about this was the blow up at the dinner party when they're going through all of the things, and Steve is recognizing the lack of appreciation, but through this whole process it does get into Cam enough that he gives a hint of where he's coming from. He gives his background, why it is that he's all about himself, because it comes down to his injury points or his trauma points when he grew up. In a quick assessment of everything, we've all got some, and there was so much insight into Cam at that point, and yet the whole dinner party gave Cam something else to think about and another way to think that he'd never had before, and people who'd never who valued him for more than just what he could produce and how he looked, and who cared about him enough to give it. And so even though, like Steve said, oh, it's, just blew it in his mind, clearly this is not blowing it. Nothing is ever wasted is my point. And there's a lot of there's a lot of growth that's going to come out of these next chapters, especially for Cam.
And the fun part about this for me, that there's two pieces. I look at this through the coaching lens and truly being a coach. And there's been so much conversation around that this last quarter in my life. And so many people who, are trainers and throw the label coach. In that chapter, in that section, he said something powerful. Cam went through a bunch of story about himself early on. And then Farber put a little more pressure on him. And he got angry and he said, I'll answer the damn question. I'm a money maker. I'm a hard worker. Does he know who he is? Okay. In that moment, in the pressure that he's at that point as this young 20-something, I would say yes. When I arrived in Austin in 2013 and the plans I had vaporized and I now had to be a real estate agent in production, I was in that same space. Clear the decks, nothing else matters. I am a money maker and I'm a hard worker. And so I kind of appreciate that, even though everybody in the space was looking for, okay, what really is the bigger picture? If you're not feeding your family, if you don't have a plan to serve where you are in the moment, you're not thinking big picture. You're not thinking about saving the world, because right now saving the world is you and your spouse and your kids potentially. And that is perfectly okay. The other interesting one for me, though, again, as a coach, the final part of the chapter that I want to cover with you guys, because, man, I deal with this on a daily basis. There are people, maybe some people even in this room, that resist the coaching questions. They hold on to their story, that continue to be the same person and don't see the growth, that don't call and ask questions, that don't interact. And it is very frustrating as a coach, because you see in them their potential and their greatness stronger than they're holding on to those limiting beliefs, yet they continue to hold on to them. And I love Farber's position here. Isn't it obvious, I said, I am supposed to help people like Cam, not chase them away. The modern malady, Steve, is people living a life of quiet desperation. The three of us here and many others like us, the ones who want to use these gifts to change the world for the better, prefer to live lives of amplified exuberance. Not everybody's going to be in a place and time. They may be in that life of quiet desperation. By the way, it may be you as well. A good coaching conversation is to help you excel in that space while your world is this. Let's get that world dialed. Then we can open it up to a bigger world together. What else are you guys pulling from Coach of the Content? And my dear, always a great voice. What do you got?
I can go. So what you were talking about, people being like Cam, you know what? I'm a deal closer and I'm a hard worker. Like that reminded me of Maslow's theory of the theory of higher needs, right? Where we have, I need food, I need money, right? And then moving up and moving up and moving up. And what Agnes is doing is calling everybody to move up within the framework of all of the needs being met. So that sort of stood out for me. I really like Mary Ellen saying my frequency. It took me a while to find it, to tune into it, as it were. There are a lot of values that I hold dear: respect, integrity, honesty, love, and family, to name a few. And my guess is that resonates with everybody in this room, right? But for me, it all plays on the radio station called service. She clearly delighted in the metaphor. Every value that I, value rolls up into service. Service is the way I show respect, integrity, honesty, characterize the kind of service I give to others. And if I'm really serving from my heart, I see everyone as family, not just my genetic relatives. I just thought that was really, really beautiful. I always say I'm an amazing wing woman. My people win. And I know that about myself. I just see the value in my people, even when they're struggling, even when they're confused or trying to find their own path. I know they're going to find it. I just know it. And so I thought that was interesting, all wrapped up into that. And I think the trick is to do all of that good work while still meeting those hierarchy of needs and not getting lost. Jeanette was saying, like, helping other people. I forget exactly how she said it, but she was talking about, helping the underdog. I'm like, you know what? It's really easy to get caught serving the underdog in this world. We have to figure out how to serve ourselves, amp our life, change the world, and still be serving our own financial capacity without getting lost in that muck of helping up the underdog.
So interesting. You said one thing, and I have to play with just because it's you and I. You just know that they're going to find their way. Man, that sounds a lot like faith. You just know, don't you? And it's awesome and it's powerful. And because you're in that vibration, that belief, putting out that energy, you're helping them arrive there.
Oh, I have plenty of faith in the world, man. Plenty of faith.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. Now, these concepts, we talked freedom, we've talked service, and Agnes's was personal growth. One of my big takeaways I want to drop on you guys from this is all of these, in fact, every character in this story, everything they're coming from is two things. Number one, it's an I am. Really, when she says she's about service, she's a servant. When Agnes talks about being into personal growth, she's a coach. And even freedom, you're a patriot in all elements of life, helping people get there. And the second piece is they all start with the individual first. You've got to achieve that for yourself and truly believe it. Even if it hasn't physically manifested in the moment, you've got to believe that you're a servant. You've got to believe that you're a patriot driving for freedom. You've got to believe that you are a coach first and foremost. You won't be successful. And then it moves to others. I want to give you the best example so we can distill this down. You guys have heard me use one portion. The pilot in the front of that 737. Are they serving all of you by getting you from point A to point B? And when a crisis hits and the masks drop, even for the pilot, what is step one of
Put on your mask.
Put on his mask first.
their own mask? Right there in the cockpit, following the same thing they teach you, because only then, only after you've done this piece for you, can you then be doing it for others and helping them at a high level. So two things. One, keep that in mind as you are all growing, and two, watch out for the people out there that don't even have their own masks on yet, that are attempting to throw them on everybody else. You never know what gas they're really passing. What else do you guys have? Caesar, buddy, great to see you. Great to hear from you.
I could add to that, Coach, and I'd like to bring some prior content to that. When again, sorry, I don't remember the lady's name from the restaurant, the older lady, and she was like, she was like pointing out, what do you see here? What's going on in the restaurant? He's like, oh, it's like just people eating. He's like, no, what do you see? She was like, everyone's having a good time. And why are they having a good time? Because we love every single person, right? And he's like, well, do you really love every single person? He's like, well, no, we act like we love them if we don't, because that's what we do as professionals. And it reminds me of that as well. Like in our business, we do love a lot of our people, but there are some people that are a little tougher to love, but we do our best as a professionals to like lower the level, love on them, and like really lower the temperature of really whatever the situation is. We can always lower the temperature and be the calm being in these transactions, especially. And I just wanted to tie that in as well. And like, again, we have to act that way. Even like sometimes we don't feel that way. Like, oh my gosh, like you can like feel a certain way, but we have to act in a way that we love them at all times. Because again, it's always a very emotional transaction, right? When we're doing this, buying or selling, investing, whatever the case may be, it's a high emotional game. So and remember, the saying is they remember how like the transaction goes or how you treat them through the transaction more than like what happens. It's like sometimes the little small things that happens throughout the place that makes you like really connect with your clients for then and afterwards as well. So just wanted to bring that into to the room because that sparked from the prior chapters.
When that section came up and I read that same piece you did, Caesar, I wanted to make a change. And so as you and I have talked before, language is how we reprogram that melon, right? And sometimes we got to tweak the language. And in here, I wanted to tweak that language because many of you, as we have discussed in this room, and we've had last week in the conversation, act equals fake. Act equals non-authentic. So I want to change, instead of act, use the word behave. Should we behave like we love them? Okay. By the way, behavior comes into who you're being. Action, what you're doing. We all know the hierarchy is be, then do, and you will then have. That's the only tweak on that section. I love that you brought it in the room, Caesar, because I didn't address it when it came up last week. Make that small shift, change your language from act to behave, and watch what happens to how you begin to show up. Justin, you're up next, brother.
Can I just give you, I want to give a little pushback to the acting part.
Caesar, bring it, and then I'll go to Justin.
Just from actors, right? Actors really, a lot of the times they're acting, quote unquote, but they're really themselves. A lot of what you see in those personalities and like those characters is really themselves. In that personality comes out, what you see them. So like that's why I know it's fake in what they're saying, but really that personality is really them. Because when you interact or you've seen them like off camera, like they're very similar to very characters that they are in real life. So just wanted to push, not to push back, but just to give a different mindset for people that like acting is not always, yes, it's fake what they're saying, but like,
In a
or like
minute.
wrestling is fake, but like, have you ever done a suplex onto a mat? It's not real, that it's not that fake. It's choreographed, but it's what they say. There's a result, but a lot of times even Hulk Hogan said that they never even did whatever moves. They would just kind of go off the crowd and things like that, and like off feeling what was going on. So just want to give that little pointer.
We went from the theater to the wrestling ring. How much fun was that? Justin, brother, what do you got?
That's perfect. I had something from the beginning of this section that I thought was very subtle, but I liked it and felt it was profound. As they're leaving the diner, Cam says he can't go. He's got plans or whatever, and it says Mary Ellen looked at me as if to say, "Take care of it, please," and hurried to her next customer. So I did, and that really got me thinking about, as we're talking about language and actions, the nonverbals that I've learned with regard to sales presentations or tied into scripts or what have you. And this is a kind of a more natural conversation, but it really got me thinking about what nonverbals I'm currently using and how to strengthen those to actually be and communicate. As we know, the words that we use are a relatively small portion of our communication. And this is something I really am getting a kick out of Steve Farber's writing. You feel like you're there as he talks about these nonverbal cues, hopping over the wall, what things look like. There's plenty of dialogue, so plenty of words, which are all awesome. But it's cool how he takes those nonverbals and then puts them in a written form.
Yeah, he's highlighting to us the power of that piece of communication, isn't he, Justin? By the way, I appreciate you always grabbing those nuggets and bringing them into the room, brother. Love the different perspectives. Miss Jeanette, I see you've got something else. And then Carrie, I'm coming to you.
Really quickly, acting into behavior. And yes, Caesar, I agree with you too, because you can't, who you are is why they hire you and what you bring to a particular thing when you're acting. But which we all realize. The interesting thing about that very comment, which of course stood out for me as well, is the be, then do, then will have still applies to act like you care about them, act like you love them, and you find out you do. You realize somewhere in there you do, even if you're hurting for them, you still love them. There's a love in you for them, and you just it's a neat way to live, and that whole character is running through this that you have helped to set up, Coach. And so I just thank you. We get to do, be, and do, and then have here too. Thanks so much.
You got it. By the way, that leading with love, sometimes we get to love people enough to let them find their happiness elsewhere. That's when you know it's not about you. Miss Carrie, what do you got, my dear?
Okay, so this is an analogy that I came across over the weekend. So I'm going to try to bring it together. So it's a poker analogy. So I personally don't play poker, but that's why I like the analogy. So for real estate, or just, being able to read people in general, they were talking about how poker, like if you think about it, all the different things, the good skills that you need in order to play. So like they talk about like emotional control and strategy, and what else do they say? Negotiation and persuasion. Like I said, I don't know who plays poker, or if you all don't, but I thought that was a good visual way or for people to possibly think about what we're talking about a little bit differently and maybe relatable. So, because I never thought about those things, but yeah, we do all those things in real estate. And, if you want to go even farther personally every day. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, we're all working those skills, aren't we? And the fun part of this point is we're now bringing it into the conscious mind so we can get better and pay attention. Almost everybody out there is just kind of going through life. They're winging it. And you guys in this room are now bringing it conscious. So you're not just winging it, and you get to improve these soft skills across the board every single day. That's, again, one of the reasons I have these bad boys on, is to remind me to work on those soft skills every single day. What else do you guys have? We got one more minute. Who's closing us out? You know you want to.
I've got when Barber is asked, and he says, ask what his one thing is, and he's surprised. She thinks she's going to go to Cam, but she doesn't. She goes to Barber, and he says freedom. But then she says, can you amp that up? What does that mean to you? So she's really looking for what's driving him. It's not just the one word, it's the definition. It's what does that mean to you? And he says, freedom to love without judgment. And he's just kind of grabbing in the ethers now. He's really searching deep in his soul, and he's trying to pull it to the surface. And he's really starting to connect with who he is. And then the next sentence, he says, that's why I'm pulled into the field of leadership development. It's the who you are that pulls you into where you're going. It's the destiny idea. You have a destiny out there that's just pulling you all the time, and to help others experience the sense of freedom. So it's all about serving others. It's kind of the same idea, but he's looking to help them feel that freedom that you talk about, Russ. So, and then he calls it an act of liberation. I mean, it sounds like he's starting a movement. Okay. So really, I think this is going to really impact him in the future, but because of this realization. Anyway,
well,
I thought that
he
was
absolutely is and has started a movement in this. Again,
Yeah.
Barber's writing the first book is considered one of the 100 most important business books of all time by the Wall Street Journal. And Radical Leap, that acronym starts with love. And that is kind of, I think, love is just damn good business. To the point, he loves people enough that he will show up for them.